everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we have an exciting video because I am obsessed with thrillers. They're my very favorite genre. They're the genre that really got me into reading in the first place. So today we have a thriller focused video where I give you guys all of my favorite thrillers that I think you guys should read for spooky season. Now, these ones aren't just like my favorite thrillers, they're the ones that I think are themed to spooky season. So a lot of these are like haunted house vibes, some of these are like haunted forest vibes. Like those are the type of vibes I go for when I'm thinking spooky season. So there's a lot of thrillers that are my favorite that didn't make this list, but I can share those in another video. Okay, we are going to start with a recent favorite of mine. This one is called We Used to Live Here, and this book is so spectacular. I'm obsessed. This is like a thriller borderline horror book. It's about this couple that moved into this house. They kind of flip houses for a living, so they got a new house. They're currently renovating it. One of them is away while the other one's home, and this family shows up at her doorstep while it's like storming, and they basically say, hey, we're like heading to our new house, we're moving, but we're like going through this town, and I actually used to live here. This is the dad speaking. He's like, I used to live here when I was younger, and I wanted to show my family like my roots, where I grew up. And so he was like, yeah, we were just like looking at the house, and he's like, is there any way I could come inside for just like 10 minutes and show them around? And she's a huge people pleaser. She has a really hard time saying no, so she ends up like saying she's gonna like call her girlfriend to see what she thinks, but they asked to wait inside in the foyer. She can't get a hold of her girlfriend, and she just like doesn't know what to do, so she says yes, they can look around. And this is where it gets horrible because she cannot seem to get this family to leave. They're just like lingering. One of their kids is like running off and playing hide and seek, and she can't get them out, and it is just horrifying. The things that happen in this book, that's all chapter, like literally chapter 1 or 2. The things that happen in this book are terrifying, and I have been raving about this book ever since I read it. My husband has heard about me talk about this nonstop. So this one's definitely a must read and is a very recent 2024 release. Sticking with the 2024 releases, we have 4 other ones that I've read this year that just came out this year that are seriously so incredible that I still haven't stopped thinking about, even though some of these I read really early on in the year. The first one is called Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth, and I've read quite a few Sally Hepworth books at this point, and this one is by far my favorite. It is perfection. It is about these 3 women who, when they were a lot younger, they were in the same foster home together. So they're foster sisters. They've kind of all gone their separate ways. They, of course, keep in touch a little bit, but they all get called back into the same home or the same town that they were fostered in because at their foster house, police have just discovered a body buried underneath the house. So there's a huge mystery of like, whose body is this? And they're trying to question and figure out if these girls knew anything about this, or basically figure out what happened in this house that resulted in there being a body buried underneath it. So it's super, super crazy. There's a twist literally like at the very end. I thought I was through all of the twists, and there's another one like at the end that just had my jaw on the floor. It is absolutely insane, and I cannot recommend this one enough. Next up, I have a book that I always get confused with this one when I see them because they came out in the exact same month. They came out 2 weeks apart, and they have like the very similar color schemes on the covers, but this one is different. This one's called Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda, another amazing thriller author that I've read and loved a lot of her books, but this one I think is my favorite of hers as well. This book is so, so good. This one's about a woman who hasn't been to her hometown in a long, long time, but she is brought back for her dad's funeral. She plans to just go back into town just for like a day or two, but when she's there, she discovers that her dad left her in the will the entire property, like his whole home. So she decides to stay a little bit to investigate and kind of figure out what's going on there. And while she's there, she starts to uncover secrets that might lead her to understand what happened to her mother and why her mom went missing so many years ago. This one's absolutely crazy, and it's such an eerie vibe, which is why I put it in this list. Like, this book is super atmospheric, so it isn't like haunted house or anything, but I just felt like on the edge of my seat and a little bit creeped out the whole time I was reading this, which was perfect. Next up, we have The Guest by B.A. Paris. This is another author I've read quite a few of, and I think this is either my favorite or maybe it's my second favorite, but this book was so good. This one was just a super fast like page turner of a thriller. It isn't even that something like crazy is happening every chapter, but the chapters are literally like 2 to 5 pages each most of the time, so it's just like the type of book that I always want to keep reading another chapter because I'm like, oh, it's just 3 more pages, oh, it's just 5 more pages. So I really love this one. It's about a couple who was on vacation, and when they come back from their vacation, they find their friend inside their home. She had not asked, she's just living there. She has been staying in their room, like sleeping in their bed. She's rearranged things in their house. She's really just doing weird things, but she said she's there because her and her husband got in a really bad fight and she needed like a safe space away from him. So of course they're like, yes, you can stay, but she's getting on their nerves by doing these weird things like rearranging their house. So they really want her to go, but they don't know how to like go about that because they want to be good friends, and strange things just start to happen. And I'm just gonna leave you there because this book is also really, really crazy. I think I predicted one of the twists in this one, but there's crazy twists in this too. So this was just so much fun. I don't even know if it like truly belongs in spooky season TBR, but it does have like just really creepy, eerie vibes with this friend that's staying, that's like doing strange things that you're just getting like, I don't know, creeped out from. The last one that was a 2024 release is Keep You by Christopher M. Tantillo, and this one is a YA like mystery book. It's not necessarily a thriller, but again, it's super creepy vibes, and this one is like a forest type of situation. So basically this one is about this teenager named Grayson, and he had been in a coma recently, and you don't really know the reasoning for it because he doesn't have memory of what happened that put him into a coma, and nobody like will tell him what happened. So he has the memory that happened, but he doesn't know why. And he also has a situation where he wakes up in the middle of the night. Well, he doesn't really wake up. He sleepwalks in the middle of the night into this forest and will wake up in the forest and have to come home, which is like super eerie and weird. He also has this like best friend that he's kind of in love with that hasn't really been in his life since that incident, but she ends up showing up at their motel that his family owns, and they start to like become friends again, and he might end up discovering what happened to him that night as they uncover this mystery. So this one was super crazy. There's like a twist at the end that kind of broke my heart, but also was like so unexpected to me, so definitely recommend this one too. Next up, we have another one of my favorite thriller authors. This is The Family Plot by Megan Collins. I've read like all but one of Megan Collins' books, and they've all been fantastic, but to me this one's the most spooky season-esque because this one's about this family that is super ridiculously obsessed with true crime. I'm talking they included it in like their school curriculum, like they are weirdly obsessed with it, and they live in this really secluded like mansion that's in like, it's on an island and it's in the woods, and they're kept very isolated from everybody else, and it's just super spooky. Like you can see from the cover even that it's just going to be a super crazy spooky ride, and I really enjoyed this one, although I do again recommend all of her books, but I think this one might even be like her most well-known potentially, so this one's definitely a good place to start if you haven't read one of her books yet, but also read all of them because they are all so good and so worth the hype. This next one's called Beneath the Stairs, and this one is like a classic haunted house type of book. It follows this house that had a very tragic history. Its previous owners had a horrible thing happen where the husband killed his wife and his 2 children and then killed himself, and it's remained like an inhabited home ever since. Nobody lives there. Of course, because it's an abandoned like spooky haunted house, teenagers go and mess around in it. It's very well known in this town, and this woman has not been in this town for a number of years. I think it's been like a couple of decades, 20 years ago, and she decides to go back into town because her childhood best friend, she finds out, tried to unalive herself inside of this house. So she goes back to try to face basically like her childhood demons, like face this house and try to uncover what happened to her friend, why people are drawn to do bad things in this house, and like what's going on. So super spooky, really amazing. Alright, I just finished recording the second half of this video, and then as soon as I hit stop recording, it all deleted itself. So that was super fun, so let's go through them all again. The next one that I talked about was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is one that is another like haunted house type of book, but this one's even different because this is about this woman who gets a nanny job with this really wealthy family. It's a live-in job, and it seems almost too good to be true. This house is like a very strange house because it is a like tech smart house, like it's a smart home. It has like apps that can control everything in the house, and things get really creepy when things start happening on those like apps in the house that she's not controlling and nobody else seems to be controlling, and they're just happening anyways. And it's super eerie. You find out right away, this is not spoilers, it's in the inside thing, that she is writing to her lawyer from prison, so you know something terrible is going to happen that she's going to end up being arrested for, and you just don't know what, and so you're basically just watching this like story unfold, basically waiting for the disaster to happen, and it's just super like edge of your seat and eerie because of that, since you already know something terrible is going to take place. So this one's super fun. And Ruth Ware is my like queen of thrillers. She is my favorite thriller author ever, so this one was hard to pick out of all of her books, but it definitely is the most like spooky season coded because it is like haunted house-esque. But I love all of her books so much. She's the reason that I read the volume that I do, because I read The Woman in Cabin 10 way back when, and then I just couldn't stop trying to chase after the feeling I had when I read that book. And and her books are just so good. So definitely recommend all of them, but this one's perfect for spooky season, and this one's actually one of her highest rated books. Next up, I debated including this in this video because this one's super dark and gruesome, but that's the reason I feel like it should be for spooky season. But check your triggers on this one because it's very grim and gruesome, and not everybody's gonna want to read this book, but I'm gonna just read the back because I truly can't do it justice. It says, he is her husband, she is his captive. Her husband calls her Jane. That is not her name. She lives in a small farm cottage surrounded by endless open fields. Everywhere she looks, there is space, but she is trapped. No one knows she is there. Visitors rarely come to the farm. If they do, she is never seen. Her husband records her every movement during the day. If he doesn't like what he sees, she is punished. For a long time, escape seemed impossible, but now something has changed. She has a reason to live and a reason to fight. Now she is watching him and waiting. This book, again, is bone-chilling. It is horrifying. You're rooting for this character so hard, and I still think about this book very regularly. It is a very gruesome book, but I really recommend it if you can stomach this type of book. We have a classic recommendation of mine. I have been recommending this book for a long time because this has been one of my favorites for forever and ever now. This is called What Lies in the Woods, and this one is so good. It's about this group of 3 friends that are adults now, but back when they were 11 years old, they used to play in the woods a lot. They were best friends, and something really horrible happened to them, and one of them got stabbed like 17 times by this person in the woods, and they weren't able to tell police enough information that they caught who did it. It ended up being somebody who was responsible for other deaths as well, so it was really amazing that they could get him behind bars and kind of move on with their lives. Now it's been 22 years, I think, since then, and they live on their own. They live separately, but one of them decides that she wants to tell the real truth of what happened that night, and basically that they've all been lying about something the entire time and haven't been transparent about what actually happened in the forest. And so she's going to tell everything, but she goes missing before she does. And so the other 2 girls go back to the same town, and they're trying to uncover what actually happened. Some of their memories might not be working, or maybe they're just hiding something, and it's super spooky and crazy twists. This book does have a number of twists, and some of them are crazy predictable in my opinion, but the ones at the end, I don't know how anybody predicts them. People do, because I have heard people say they understood what was going to happen. I totally did not. I was blindsided by the ending, and I thought it was done so well. So this is absolutely amazing and definitely one of my favorite thrillers. And then I had to include, in my opinion, the king of spooky season thrillers, and that is Riley Sager. I love his books so much, but his, for some reason, they all have that creepy, eerie, a lot of them are haunted house type of books. They are literally spooky season coded. If you are going to take away one author from this, pretty much any of his books are going to give you that feeling that you're looking for in a thriller this time of year. So for example, I'll go through these really quickly. First, haunted house, another haunted house, you're stuck in a car with a serial killer, and haunted lake. So that should be enough information alone to sell you on those, but let's go through them one by one. The first one that I actually ever read was Survive the Night, and this one's set in the 80s, and it's about this woman who basically really needs a ride home from college. It's going to be a holiday break anyways, but also there are some mysterious deaths happening on campus that are pointing towards there being a serial killer. So she wants to hightail it out of there, but she doesn't have a ride, so she decides to go to the rideshare board on campus to try to get a ride out of town, and she accepts this ride from this complete stranger. It's going to be in the middle of the night, and again, it's the 80s, so there's no cell phones. And she, pretty soon into the drive, starts to suspect that the person that she's driving with might be the serial killer on campus that she's trying to escape from, which is absolutely insane. And there are many times in this book where you just want to hit your head with the book because you're please make better choices, woman, because it's painful. But this is such a good page turner and super crazy ridiculous book. It's not, in my opinion, his best, but it is, I think, his most page turning, because you have to, it's like a train wreck unfolding. You have to figure out what's going to happen and figure out what these 2 people are going to do, because it's absolutely insane. Next up is my personal favorite of his. This one is Lock Every Door, and this one I gave 5 stars. This one's about this person who is accepting almost a apartment sitting gig at this apartment complex. It seems too good to be true for what she's getting out of it, but they have really weird rules at this apartment complex. She can't have any guests over. She actually can't leave the complex for longer than a few hours. She can't spend the night anywhere else. And the people in the apartment, all of her neighbors and the people she's meeting in the lobby, they're starting to give really weird vibes, and again, haunted house type of vibes. Weird things are happening. She's starting to think that even though it's a good situation for her to have housing, it's maybe not safe for her here, and this book is absolutely insane, and I did not predict what was going to happen in this. I thought it was so well done. Next up, we have The House Across the Lake, and this one's about this woman who is really creepy. She's basically spying on these people across the lake. They seem to have the most perfect life, the idyllic marriage, and her life has been crumbling lately, so she's watching them kind of like lustfully wishing that she could be them. And she ends up saving the woman from drowning in the lake, and they end up talking, and she's still watching them, but the woman ends up going missing, and she decides that she doesn't think it's by chance. She thinks the husband did something to her. She thinks they might not have had the most perfect life after all, and that's where I'm going to leave you, because this book takes some crazy turns and is honestly a little bit different than all of his other books, even though it is like similar, I don't even know how to describe it, similar eerie vibes, but the direction this takes is different than any of his other books. If you've read this, you know what I mean. And the last one of his books is Home Before Dark, that I think fits perfectly for this time of year. This one's another type of like haunted house book. It's about this woman who's going back to her childhood home, basically to like fix it up and potentially be selling it. And this is a childhood home that has a lot of weird history in her family, because when she was a kid, she moved there with her parents and her, I think, brother, and they ended up like fleeing this house. It's kind of this really big, old, creepy house, and the dad has like a lot of books that he's written. He's made a lot of money off of writing about how this house was haunted and all these crazy things that happened in it, and she doesn't necessarily believe all of them. She thinks that these are a little bit stretched truths, so she's going back. She's feeling brave. She's gonna go stay there and renovate and fix it up, and these things that her dad wrote about, they're starting to happen to her. So it says like bells are ringing themselves, record players that turn on and play music to empty rooms, ghosts that climb out of wardrobes, so like super crazy creepy stuff. This book is also super eerie and just twisty, and another one you just can't put down because you want to find out what's going to happen. And that is all of them. Again, these are just my favorite thrillers that I think are best for this time of year. These aren't even like my top thrillers of all time. That would be way harder to narrow down, but I do want to do a video like that eventually, because as I said, thrillers are my favorite genre, and I have so many amazing recs. It's just hard to pick favorites when there's so many good ones. And this list, I'd say like maybe a third of these would end up on my top like 10 favorites or top 15 favorites, but there's so many that aren't on this list that aren't necessarily perfect for spooky season but are amazing thrillers. So I'll definitely make that video a different time, like my top 10 or top 15 favorite thrillers of all time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed and took some inspiration and hopefully found a book or two to add to your own TBR. And let me know what other genres you'd like me to make like a favorites list of, because I've already done thrillers now, and I have done fantasy before, but I haven't done any other genres, and I read pretty much everything. So I could do romance, historical fiction, I even read like graphic novels, YA, poetry, nonfiction, memoirs, like there's a whole lot. So if you're interested in any other type of like genre favorites, because I've read so many books, then let me know and I'd be happy to do those.